I've been sleeping on analog synthesizers for some time. Figuratively speaking, of course, and it was the Arturia Microbrute that finally woke me up, packing the punch and functionality of a massive synthesizer, including a small patch bay known as the mod matrix, an oscillator mixer, ADSR envelope generator, filters, inputs and outputs on the back to include CV gate and MIDI in, not to forget the crunchy awesomeness of the Brute Factor knob. I'm confident this is a good choice. This being the first analog synth that I've purchased doesn't make me an expert by no means, but it's simple enough that I finally understand analog synths and all that, but it's also so awesome and sounds so good that I think it's a great place to start. EUMONIK, music maker, creator, peace to those that know the name. Oscillators, filters, LFOs, and envelopes. Synthesizer stuff are at first intimidating, and to me, this was the synthesizer that at least spoke to me and said, hey, I think this is a good place to start, let alone how awesome it sounds with its beefy, crunchy, gritty awesomeness. To oscillate means to go up and down. So these are just waveforms, basically. They're generating some type of signal, and they all have their different flavors. That's where all the beef comes from, I guess. That's like the meat and potatoes of the sound. So that's a sawtooth, then you got square, and then triangle. Now this one's the overtone. And now the filter is probably something that most of us are familiar with. You know, you filter out the highs or you filter out the lows. We do that in mixing. We talk about it in mixing quite often. One of the things that people go, oh yeah, I understand what a filter does. So there's the cutoff frequency. And you can switch between high pass, low pass, and band pass. Let's take it down to some heavier, lower sounds. The Microbrute also has something called the Brute Factor, which is just this crazy feedback loop thing, and I guess it originated from this concept of taking the output of the synthesizer and feeding it back into itself. It's basically creating feedback, and it creates awesome, chunky nastiness is what I would describe it as. And you can get as wild as you want to with it. To show how awesome the Brute Factor is, I'm going to start with a square wave and then just turn it up and you can hear what happens. Here it comes. It just starts doing crazy stuff the more you mess with it. And then if you add resonance to it, listen to this. It's incredible. The more you play it, the more you can understand the subtle nuances of how the actual voltage changes and the electricity is moving through the different circuits in it and how that's flavoring your sound. Something that's very interesting. LFOs are a low frequency oscillator, so it's actually another oscillator, but they move at very low frequencies and they can be used to alter the sound in different ways. So if I take one of the patch cables and go from LFO to pitch, you'll hear how this starts to affect the pitch of the synth. So that's how much it's affecting it. Now we're going to turn up how fast it does it. The thing I like to do with the LFO is set it on pitch and then have it very subtle so it just gives it that kind of warbly, just a little bit of movement in the pitch. Obviously not that much. You know the effects that add that subtle tape warble, whatever it's called. And then the last thing is the envelope right here, which is just 4 sliders, really easy to use, and that's attack, decay, sustain, and release. The envelope, as controlled by ADSR knobs on synthesizers and things like that, is basically how the sound interacts over time. Does it come in fast or does it come in slow? And does it leave quickly or does it leave fast? Like you could make a little pluck with a fast decay and a short release. Let's turn the LFO off. Or a longer release, more like, I don't know, a piano or something. That's too long. Or a slow attack, like a violin or something like that. Even slower. There's a lot of other features on this synthesizer, but for me, it had enough of those synth features and terms and concepts, but not too much that it overwhelmed me. It gave me a place to start as far as having an analog synthesizer. It seems intimidating when you're starting with a banjo or a guitar or a piano and then quickly diving into the madness that is electronic synthesis and analog stuff. Ironically enough, after getting my Microbrute and using it, I realized that I wasn't as excited about analog synths as I thought I was in the beginning. Now, don't get me wrong, I still want to build my analog synth collection, but I'm glad I didn't spend thousands of dollars realizing that I shouldn't have spent that much money. So if you're in the same boat, hopefully that helps you. As always, I appreciate you being here for the first time or once again. I'm Eumonic. On this channel, I make videos about the products, processes, my perspective, and performances of my life as a music maker and creator. All the links down below support me in some capacity, which is greatly appreciated. You can go listen to my music, follow me elsewhere, and shop around those links for all the good stuff, including the Microbrute like we talked about today. I gotta get back to making more videos and more music. Speaking of videos, goodness, I'm out of breath. There's some right there. God bless.